Welcome to Masterclass Monday. My name is SASHA BERLINER, and I am the winner of the LetterOne Rising Stars Jazz Award, North American Edition for 2018. The aim of the LetterOne Rising Stars Jazz Award is to support outstanding early career or emerging artists. It has been supported by a number of world-class jazz musicians, including George Benson and Dee Dee Bridgewater. The winners are awarded a free year of marketing and PR support on behalf of Air Artist Agency and get to play a number of amazing jazz festivals. In the run of my tour, I got to perform at a number of festivals, including the Montreal Jazz Festival, Vancouver Jazz Festival, DC Jazz Festival, and San Francisco Jazz Festival. So it's really a wonderful opportunity. I have never seen an award that offers such wonderful opportunities for emerging artists. This year, a lot of things have been put on pause due to the coronavirus. We see a lot of venues and festivals, these very festivals that I was playing just a summer ago, postponing their events. Even once we come out of coronavirus, we will be facing less ticket sales and less crowded concerts, and therefore the music industry in general, but particularly the jazz industry, is really going to be hurting. Even worse, we see students and children and families around the world forced to be self-isolating in their homes, lives being taken. These are really desperate and devastating times. We also see a lot of people stuck at home with not much to do. A lot of their work, school, or whatever it may be is postponed, so a lot of people do have free time while they are self-isolating. We hoped that by doing some of these master classes, you could listen and join in from your homes, wherever you are in the world, and hopefully get something out of us playing some music and teaching you some things. Whether you are an advanced student or a beginner, I'm sure there is something that everyone can take away. Take a weight off your shoulders, enjoy some music, learn some new things, and yeah, as well as encouraging you to play with me, pick up an instrument, and interact with this masterclass. I would like to take a second to commemorate all of those who are actively battling and fighting against the coronavirus, whether it is someone who is sick or someone on the front lines, working in medical services or for delivery, risking their own lives to protect those of others. Thank you so much. And because of that, click the link below, and any donations that you give, 100% of the proceeds will go to Heart to Heart. They're an organization actively working to supply medical supplies and equipment to hospitals around the world. I hope that today is a lot of fun for you guys to listen to and learn. I hope that I can inspire you all to be creative and positive from your own homes during a time like this. So I hope you enjoy. Well, I'm going to start off with some warm-ups, some basic warm-ups that I do on the vibraphone. So I play with both 4 mallets and 2 mallets. We'll start with 2 mallet work right now because I know there are people who play 4 mallets and there are people who play just 2. So I want to have options for everyone. What I usually like to start off with is chromatic exercises, which are good because you cover every single key on the instrument and you also cover the full range of the instrument. The tricky thing about the vibraphone is that it's quite large, and when you're as small as someone like me, it does take a lot of physical effort just to get beyond, an octave. You have to reach this whole range and sort of get your body physically ready to adapt to moving to both sides of the instrument, at least in order to get a full and virtuosic sound. Usually I have a metronome on, but you can start slow, fast, whatever works for you. I usually like to do a combination of both because on the vibraphone, you sort of have different strokes for how fast or how slow you're playing. Whenever I'm playing something slower or I want, this really big, full projected tone, I'm thinking a little bit more about my arm movement and my wrist. I like to think that gravity is sort of helping me out in this scenario. We have a weighted mallet, it's heavier on this end than on this end, which is different from a drumstick. And usually you can achieve that when you are playing something that is slower and therefore bigger. Obviously we can't play super loud when we're playing super fast, so that's a different thing. Yeah, whenever we're playing slow, I like to make sure I can practice this motion of sort of letting the mallet work for me and letting it drop even. You can even exaggerate it, you know, just like, you know, it might sound ridiculous. Hopefully it won't get your neighbors mad, but yeah, just getting used to that produces a really full tone. And so I like to practice that while going chromatically up and down the instrument. Even super slow, thinking about these sort of arcs with my arms and my wrists. Of course, all fingers are around the stick at all times, and they're still there. You know, they should always be ready to sort of work, especially if you're going to transition from this to something faster. For now, we're going to focus on the wrist and the arm. So and so forth, and you go up and down. I think it's important to practice this slow thing, and then you can obviously speed it up, adjust that metronome. And when we play faster, we want to think about using more of the fingers, because if you're using your arms to play fast, you're going to get stiff really quick. Not only that, but it's not going to sound fluid. It's going to sound stiff. It'll look stiff and it'll sound stiff. You want to focus on the wrist and the fingers a lot. You want to build up to this faster tempo, hopefully, if you can. Something like that. Yeah. You can take it in segments, whatever you want. Yeah, I usually warm up doing that. Another great thing is when you're doing this chromatic exercise is that you can vary going between straight feels and swing feels, which are both required feels when you're playing jazz or when you're improvising or playing melodies. It would sound something like I think that's an important thing to practice and to make sure that your metronome or that your beat is constant throughout your transition from straight to swing. And when we think about swing on the vibraphone, it's usually this accent in the right hand or whatever your second sticking is. So if you start a phrase with your right hand, it would be your left. But most of the time on the vibraphone, we tend to see starting with the left hand because it's closest to the end of the instrument. I guess it would be right if you're going descending. So yeah, it's just a matter of accenting that second note, and that's how you get that swing feel. Some other chromatic exercises, I like to move instead of just like this chromatic stepwise motion, to move into arpeggios as well, and to sort of incorporate the two of those. So I'm going to take a major triad. Start with F, that's the lowest one, F major. We're going to go up, ascending, just 1, 3, 5, 1. Now we're on G flat, that's the next one, but we're gonna go descending. To get to our next arpeggio, we're gonna go chromatically all the way up. So we're starting on G, and then our goal is to go to a descending A flat major triad. So it would be like. You do the chromatic figure every 3 sort of steps that you ascend, so. Go up the range, go down, sort of forces you to get into this mindset that is common in jazz of opposing directions. And it also forces you to sort of start with a different stick each time. This is kind of weird, right? We're descending and starting with our left hand instead of right. In jazz vibraphone, you're going to encounter a lot of scenarios in which you're forced to do kind of weird crossover sticking. And it's not very comfortable and not very intuitive, so you have to work at it. And this is a great exercise to sort of improve on that sort of crossover sticking. Sort of in the same realm, going sort of over diatonic major scales, honestly whatever scale you want, but I'll use major for reference. Work on this sort of directional figure practicing. So basically it goes like this. You have a group of 4 notes. Say we're taking F major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4. How you're going to play it instead is 1, 2, 4, 3. That way you already doing an upwards motion and then a downwards motion. And then you're going to continue going up with the group of 4 notes diatonically through the scale. In F major, that's... So you're continuing on, but you're still keeping that upwards, downwards motion. And you go up through the scale like that. I guess it has this sort of Baroque sound, but it's also a common motion in jazz. It uses that sort of up and down motion. Good to get in that mindset when we're doing jazz. Another thing to think about is doubles versus singles on the instrument. And by doubles, I mean when you're hitting the note twice with the same mallet versus opposing mallets. Sometimes when we're doing a run, something, whatever it may be, there's like kind of a lot of this crossover motion, and sometimes you can use doubles to make that easier, especially for really long runs. Sometimes you can get sort of caught in the other mallet when it's moving really fast. This was a big thing for Gary Burton's vibraphone playing. Personally, I don't like to just use doubles all the way up. I'm not fluid like that, but I actually do like to use a combination because I find that it gives me more endurance. It's basically like a 6-note figure, right? Which is really good for doubles. I like to vary between doubles and singles and play the doubles every 3rd time. So double, double, something like that. And I feel like that's very fluid and very fast. And it's good just in case, when you're improvising, you never know what sort of sticking scenarios you're going to get into. So you want to be comfortable with both doubles and singles. In terms of scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. When we're transposing a figure, we're going to keep the numerical relationship to the root of the scale or the chord or whatever it may be. We're going to keep that in mind because that's going to help us transpose. If we understand, what is the 3rd of this key, what is the 4th, the 5th, there's no question about it, you know what it is, and so that makes transposing infinitely easier. So let's take like a simple phrase. For those of you who are just getting used to this idea, let's take key of C minor. C, E flat, F, G. That's 1, flat 3, 4, 5. Now say you wanted to go in the circle of fifths. In jazz, we sort of go the opposite direction of circle and fifths. In other words, we're going up in fourths. So that means we'll go to F and then B flat and then E flat, A flat next. So you're going to find the 1, the flat 3, the 4, and 5 in all of those keys. It's the same, basically the same phrase, but in a different key. And that's the trick. So you want to go through, say, circle of fourths, as we'll call it, thinking about the 1, the flat 3, the 4, and the 5 in that little 4-note figure. You can get more challenging with it. You can go up in minor thirds. You can go up in major thirds. That one's tricky. Some giant steps energy right there. You can go up in whole steps, which is one of my favorite ways to practice it. Now you can do that with even more complicated phrases, and obviously you don't have to do it that fast. So for those of you who are more advanced, let's take something that has a very mixed relationship in the jazz world, which is a lick, which is said to be sort of like a bebop phrase that maybe is even overused. Stereotypical traditional jazz sound. It usually outlines the chord changes really well. There's a lot of something that we call like surround tones, approach notes, arpeggios, chromatic motion. It's very common. So let's take, I'll make up one. Base it on a 2-5-1. Key of B flat. So we basically just did a 2-5-1. It's sort of based on a minor 7 chord with the 9. And that's an inversion of the sort of diminished sound that you can play over a 5 chord. And a good way to think about that is based on the flat 7 of the 5 chord, or the flat 9, or the 3, or the 5. It's all the same. But we're sort of starting at E flat is sort of this lower note, C is the higher note. So it's sort of back and forth motion. So 1, 5, add a sharp 11, why not? Our full phrase is, sounds very like, you know, stereotypical jazz. It's the kind of thing that your jazz teacher gave a worksheet on and told you to shred. But let's try transposing it in all keys. And for those of you who are more advanced, try like a random key that is maybe not your most comfortable. I'll take G flat for me. So I'm gonna think about the 9 of the 2 chord. Just randomly choose your next key, whatever, right? This is D major. But there you go. It could be your 4-note phrase, it could be something more elaborate. Take it around all the keys, do that once a day with one phrase. It's a great way to practice. Let's get into some 4-mallet stuff. So 4-mallet was actually the first way that I learned to play the vibraphone, and usually I play 2 mallets when I really need to project over a band. Comping side of things is not really required of me, say there's already a guitarist and a pianist. However, if I'm playing solo or trio, duo, these sort of smaller contexts, I always play 4 mallets. You will always see me doing that. Good things I like to work on with 4 mallets. Independence. We can always play 4 notes at one time. That's how we get our chords. But usually to make chords sound nice on the vibraphone and have transitions, things like that, you need to get some sort of mallet independence so that you can go back and forth between this and that, or that kind of thing. So what I like to practice for that, we're going to take diatonic motion again, because it's an easy way to practice. An open voicing major 7. So that would be 1, 5, 7, 3. 3 being the top voice, basically. You can stick to the independence and you can change the order in which your mallets play. So say we do 2, 3, 4, 1. What I used to do is do like 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically starting 4 times, starting with the first mallet, 4 times starting with the second mallet, 4 times starting with the third mallet, 4 times starting with the last mallet. So what that sounds like is, you can accent them or you don't have to. And you can even do this going up diatonically. You can also do a different sort of independence thing. I learned this from an old teacher of mine. You sort of go back and forth between, you're not only sort of moving the interval in your hand, which is done with sort of squeezing motion, and as you notice as I get wider, my thumb kind of comes up, this finger is kind of down, you know, you got this wide right angle, you can go farther than that. My bottom fingers are always sort of keeping them in touch, and then as I get closer, this pointer finger goes up to make room for the mallet, so that's not in between. And again, my lower fingers are still holding the mallet, so that's kind of how you go back and forth. This it's sort of cheesy, right? But that kind of motion is really good. And then you can also do it with your left hand while doing something else with your right hand. Practice with the metronome, make it, you know, more groovy, less exercisey. That's a great warm-up. Let's go into songs now. First thing that's great to practice, and we can do this with 2 mallets, is Bach etudes, or anything of that sort. I'm working on this violin sonata, and violin is interesting because it has a bigger range than the vibraphone, and it also sort of requires us to do uncomfortable stickings because it's not made for our instrument. So it's a great thing to practice. I'll play a segment of it. G minor triad, but you're doing this weird crossing over and going for the full range of the instrument. Like, that's quite a distance to make, and so in that way it's really good to practice. A lot of times it sort of it requires doubles, which is exactly what I was talking about. It is a really good thing to learn on vibraphone. You get a much faster result when you're using doubles. You can find any number of those books online. They're pretty widely available. It is classical repertoire, which I think is good for everyone to learn, no matter what instrument. Alright, so let's continue to do some four-mallet work, and we will reharm a jazz standard. My Funny Valentine is one of my favorite ballads to play. It has this sort of melancholy longing and beauty to it. If you listen to the lyrics and the harmony, that's sort of the impression I got, so it's definitely the emotion that I want to keep in mind when I'm thinking about my own solo vibraphone arrangement. I don't want to just jump into the melody, I want to add something more. So let's do an intro, and let's start with a pedal. And a pedal, for those of you who don't know, is when you keep one note constant while changing other notes within the chord or whatever it may be. And I'm going to take this melody, I'm going to start on C, because we are in the key of C minor, but I want the chords that we start with in the intro to be different enough from the home key. We want to have a place to go to and then a place to come back to. Pedal. And in My Funny Valentine, they do use this F minor tonality a lot. It's sort of within the key. But we're going to mess that up a little bit, right? Because we don't want it to be too within the key. We want to have this place to go to and then come back to. We have an F and a C, right? It's sort of indicative of F minor, but we're going to change it a little bit. So we're going to use a different chord that can use those same two notes. So I'm going to use a B flat minor 7, minor 9. And it's an inversion, right? It's starting with the 5, which is F. When you take a chord in inversion, it makes something sound a lot more suspended. It's sort of like it hasn't resolved yet. So, and that's a great way to start off a piece. You don't want to sound like, you don't want to sound super resolved. You want it to build. You want it to go somewhere. So this sounds super suspended, and the other great thing is that when you're playing the vibraphone, although you can only play 4 notes at one time, you can let more than 4 notes ring out at once. So you get a really full chord, a really full sound, and you may have to re-articulate notes, but it does mean that you can get more notes into the harmony, so you get this full lush sound. The top note is my melody, right? We'll go sort of this descending motion. We have this A flat here. That also kind of sounds like F minor. Let's push it even more. We're starting. Something like that. That chord that I just played is sort of E triad with F in the bass. It has this really out there sound, so we're really like pushing it, Now the melody's sort of got this motion of going down in whole steps, so let's continue that pattern. However, that's kind of an odd melody, and we played some odd chords. So let's make this next chord sound a little sweeter. Beautiful, right? It feels kind of resolved, like it really went somewhere and it sort of came back. You want to always think about sort of tension and release. So it's a very sweet sound. And now sit on that a little bit. A flat major 7. Now let's get to our F minor, right? So let's hint at the 5 chord, C7 flat 9 in the key of F minor. I'm going to play sort of diminished thing that is related to the C7 flat 9. You can find that built off of the flat 9, the 3, the 5, or the 7, and you just play full diminished 7. That kind of sound. I'm going to voice it in a way that sounds like that. And then that way you can sort of add more notes than just this. Again, it's that thing of adding more notes than just the 4 that you can play. So let's take our C7, sort of. Really build up to it. You can play giant fill, make it like the epic moment. Our F minor, and I've sort of put this 13/11 extension on it, which gives it this sort of profound sound. It's like not quite a minor, it's more, I don't know, contemplative than, you know. Like, this is a really beautiful sound. So we got to F minor, right? And now we're going to do the grand finale. Let's do another pedal, but instead of the pedal being in the bass, let's do it up here. So I chose B flat, I don't know why, because B flat triad over F minor. Something like that. That is sort of a way of really building up this tension. We revisit that F, E triad with the F in the bass at the end to really sort of revisit something we already did, but also because B flat is not actually in this chord. You know, everything I was playing, D flat, major 7, right? That works. That's sort of like I guess it's like a B major 7 flat 5 in inversion. That works, major 7. G7 sharp 5. That's a sharp 9. That works. But in this chord, B flat doesn't work, so you gotta resolve it. And then I played a big diminished fill. And then we get to our G7 flat 9 and go into the song. So that's a good way to build an intro. And very quickly we can talk about techniques for the song. So when we get into the actual song, I'm going to play something kind of pretty. With solo vibraphone, you always want to think about the melody being louder than the rest of what you play, because it's the main thing, right? Everything is sort of supporting. You think about a pianist supporting a singer, or even supporting themselves. The melody is the main thing, always. So I'm sort of putting my own spin on the melody. Doing this arpeggiated motion. It makes it very pretty, and you know, we just played an intro that was very rubato, so this gives it some more structure and sort of tells us, oh yeah, we've come to the song now. Something fun for an outro for this song is, instead of, you know, for the outro we have the it's a 2-5-1 to E flat major. Instead, let's make it go to minor. and do a little pedal point at the end, because you know we love pedals. Instead of resolving to E flat major, you know, like the song is supposed to, E flat minor, and let's do the pedal. This is an F triad with E flat in the bass, or an F7. It's a little chromatic motion. You know, we had a G flat triad as part of our E flat minor 7. Move it down. Right? So we're going to think about that motion. That's our way of getting to E flat major, and you can end the song. Those are just a couple of tips and tricks of mine that go into playing vibraphone, warming up, whether it be 4 mallets, 2 mallets, a little insight into the songs that I practice or the way that I might arrange songs for solo vibraphone. I do hope you've had a lot of fun listening to this masterclass and tuning into my practice routine, more or less. Again, if you wish to make a donation to Heart, there is a donate button below in the video. Make sure that you click on that and support those who are working so hard to prevent coronavirus at this time. Looking forward to seeing you all again soon, hopefully for the second part of my video, where I will play a couple songs for you and you can actually play along with me a little bit. Yeah, thanks so much. SASHA Berliner signing off.